He watched his buddy get offed, then surged with fury, ready to kick some ass. Next thing you know, got shot. Down he went, right into the bathtub. His killers sauntered over. As they made their hasty exit, the man popped up from the tub, good as new. Seriously, that stomach wound vanished. A couple of slick moves later, the henchman was toast. Then, the boss got his head caved in with a gun butt. Who is this dude? Why is he Wolverining? And why is everyone trying to off him? A few nights back, Shelly, an escort, got a super anxious call from her friend Zadi. Zadi had sent her a video about some powerful customer. Apparently, it was enough to blow up the whole damn world. Zadi had planned to team up with two friends to take down the enemy, but she realized she was being targeted. Good instincts, Zadi. Zadi sent the video to Shelly as backup, just in case. But when she pushed open her rental door, a blonde woman was chilling in the room. The blonde snatched her phone, scrolled through her chat history, and then ordered the bodyguard to inject Zadi with a sedative. Meanwhile, Shelly felt a cold wave of dread. The call cut out, so she immediately dialed her friend Dom. They agreed to meet at Zadi's. But as soon as Shelly stepped out, she realized she was being followed. Quick thinking, she accidentally bumped into two cops, spilling contraband from her bag. Nailed it. So, the police cuffed her. But since she's still young, they shipped her straight to a rehabilitation center. And who else is there? Our main man, Eric. At this point, Eric's still getting pushed around by other troubled teens.
Say something.
Hello?
Say something!
Are you there?
Say something, son!
Haunted by his crummy childhood, at night, he spotted Shelly through the window. He had no idea this girl was about to flip his whole world upside down. Over at some swanky ballroom, business bigwig Roig was schmoozing with piano whiz Mary. The blonde woman Marion popped up and pulled Roig aside. Down to the basement they went. Zadi was being held captive there. And guess who the star of that explosive video was? Roig himself. He tried to force Zadi to spill Shelly's location, but Zadi clammed up. Roig then droned on about how he'd lived for centuries and killed hundreds of innocent people like her. Because, they just love innocent souls. As he finished speaking, Roig leaned in close to Zadi's ear. Next thing you knew, Zadi picked up a knife and, as if controlled, took her own life. Roig then slashed his own palm and covered her like he was enjoying a nice, soul-flavored snack. Back at the rehab center, Eric was zoning out during morning exercises, which earned him a curse from the black officer. That caught Shelly's attention. So, at lunch, she slid her tray over to Eric and greeted him. He kept avoiding eye contact, clearly a bit weirded out. "Don't they have a thing about men and women not sitting together?" she asked. "I know," he replied. "They told me." The two started chatting and surprisingly, they clicked. The black instructor dragged Eric away.
What's your name?
I'm Eric.
Shelly.
But yep, love was officially blooming. Their peaceful life, however, was about to get shattered. Marion found Shelly's mom and cut some kind of deal. They were headed to the rehab center, and Shelly had no clue. She wandered into Eric's room, saw the walls covered in drawings, one even a portrait of her. They talked music. Everything was just so in sync. Just as their feelings started to grow, an announcement buzzed. Shelly had a visitor. She freaked out because nobody knew she was there. Eric offered to check it out. He told Shelly the person looked like a lawyer, but when Shelly saw the blonde woman, she knew immediately it was one of Roig's goons. Terrified, Eric grabbed her, pulling her away. Good thing he knew an escape route. He dragged Shelly to the laundry room. They could ditch their electronic shackles and escape through the vent by climbing on the washing machine. By the time the blonde woman found the laundry room, our dynamic duo had already bolted. They flagged down a car on the road, hitched a ride, and were gone. Shelly rested her head on Eric's shoulder. Yep, official couple. Shelly took Eric to a friend's place. Her friend was currently in Antigua and wouldn't be back for a while. Shelly knew this would drag Eric into danger, but he was willing to stick by her side, even if it meant risking his neck. The next few days were basically their honeymoon phase. Meanwhile, the cops were pulling Zadi's body out of the lake. The officer, instead of calling the station, called Marion directly. "Trouble's here," he said. "Just delightful." Eric had discovered that Shelly had a natural talent for music, but she had a serious aversion to the piano. Guess why? It reminded her of Roig. And the most painful part? She couldn't tell Eric the truth because she'd made a huge mistake in that damn video. The two went outside to clear their heads. Shelly was terrified Eric would bail on her. "Eric, The good boyfriend he was comforted her. He said he'd have been dead ages ago without her. If Shelley decided to swan dive off the bridge, he'd be right behind her. Then, the two lovebirds hit up a nightclub. Under the hazy lights, they lost themselves in the fantasy. Suddenly, their friend Dom burst in, found Shelley, and dropped a bombshell. Zoddy was dead. Dom urgently warned them, "You gotta leave this town, immediately." Hearing that, Shelley frantically dragged Eric out of the nightclub. They packed their stuff, planning to sneak out under the cover of night. But just as Eric locked the door and stepped into the living room, he saw Shelley, with a plastic bag wrapped around her head. Instantly, he was jumped by the assailants. Through the suffocating plastic, Eric watched Shelley die right in front of him. His own breathing faded. In his blurry mind, he felt like he was plummeting into the deep sea. He saw Shelley's figure and swam towards her like crazy, but she just sank to the bottom. The sheer instinct to survive pushed him back to the surface. When he reached shore, he was in a totally new place. Eric had no idea what the hell was going on. He followed some old dude with dogs to a platform covered in black crows. Legend says these birds guide lost souls across the boundaries of life and death, pointing them in the right direction amidst the chaos. Eric, being stubborn, just figured it was a nightmare. He spun around and walked away without a second glance. The old man, however, magically appeared in front of him. "Softly," he said. "If it's a dream, then wake up." Before he even finished, Eric plunged into a pond. When he opened his eyes again, he was back home. But Shelley, poof, gone. Just as Eric picked up his clothes, missing his girlfriend, the same cop who'd called Marion showed up. Eric quickly hid in the shadows, but the officer sniffed him out instantly. Eric figured, screw it, no more hiding. He didn't know the officer was crooked as hell. He tried to explain his situation, but the officer just drew his gun and fired. To his shock, Eric didn't die after being shot. He grabbed a dagger, stood up, and lunged at the cop. Even though he got stabbed multiple times, his fighting skills were pathetic compared to the officer's. But he was immortal. That let him successfully kill the officer. The wounds on his back just healed. Eric stumbled out the door, confused and in a hurry. A crow followed him. Eric walked to the edge of a bridge. Suddenly, he saw Shelley right there. She just glanced at him. Then, she plunged into the cold river. Eric jumped in right after her. But when he woke up again, he was back at the station. The old man was nearby, chillingly calm. "Whether it's Shelley or you," he said, "you are both actually no longer in this world." Eric couldn't wrap his head around it. If they were both dead, why wasn't Shelley here? The old man continued his cheerful explanation. "She's going to a much worse place. The people who killed Eric shouldn't even be in their world," he explained, "because those people made a deal with demons, sending innocents to hell in exchange for eternal life. This little arrangement, apparently, was messing with the balance between worlds." The old man told Eric as long as he eliminated those demonic pack people, he could get Shelley back and restore her life. But there was a catch, of course. Eric had to keep his love pure. Otherwise, his immortal body would vanish. As soon as the old man finished his spile, he sent Eric back to the land of the living. Eric quickly found his trusted tattoo artist and got a gun and some bullets from him. Meanwhile, Shelley's funeral was underway. Her mother looked obscenely wealthy. Eric followed Shelley's mother back to her apartment. Everything this woman had now was gained at the cost of sacrificing her daughter. Eric asked her, "Who were the people who came with you to the rehabilitation center that day?" "I want to kill them all. That way I can bring Shelley back." Shelley's mother just stared blankly, not understanding a word. She didn't think this reckless young man could take down the all-powerful Roy. Getting no answers, Eric walked into Shelley's bedroom alone. He spotted deep scratches on the floor in front of the wardrobe, so Eric, being the intuitive sort, shoved the wardrobe aside, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside were photos of Shelley, Zoddy, and a bunch of other people. At the bottom, a little badge from an art gallery. Eric, naturally, zoomed straight to that address. On the way, Eric ran smack dab into the assailants, the very ones who'd offed his two friends that day. He pulled his gun and took one of them hostage, demanding to know who the bodyguard's boss was. Just then, the tracking clues suddenly went dead. A wave of panic washed over Eric. Suddenly, the bodyguard's phone pinged. 2 messages from Marion. They'd found Dom's location, and she was urging the bodyguard to act now. At this crucial moment, Marion and her crew just happened to drive by. Eric blocked their path, aiming his gun to force them to stop. No surprise here, the car came straight at Eric. He shattered the glass and launched himself into the vehicle. He used the man's momentum against him. then wasted the driver. The vehicle went completely ape, smashing wildly through the tunnel. The white-haired guy seized the chance and kicked him out. A truck roared by, and Eric was instantly swept right under it. Even though Eric had an immortal body, not dying didn't mean he didn't feel pain. He gritted his teeth, adjusted his broken bones, and somehow stood up. What a champ. Meanwhile, Roy showed up at Shelley's mother's house. He wanted to know from Shelley's mother what this young man's deal was. Shelley's mother spilled the beans. Eric had told her that if Roy was killed, Shelley could come back to life. Roy's expression twitched. He was done with Shelley's mother's fake tears. Roy pointed out that she'd sacrificed her daughter for a pile of cash, and now she was playing the virtuous victim. Roy, being Roy, used his powers again to hypnotize Shelley's mother. She instantly plummeted from upstairs, turning into a nice red puddle of flesh and blood. Lovely. Immediately after, Roy called Marion. He told her Eric had been sent back from the underworld and had the power to escape death. Roy ordered Marion to capture Eric at all costs. At this point, Eric found Dom. He, being a bit short on information, mistakenly thought Dom was an enemy. Dom frantically explained that a guy named Roy was trying to kill Shelley. Dom had witnessed Roy's spooky supernatural abilities himself. He suggested Eric look for Shelley's phone. The video content would reveal everything. Before leaving, Eric warned Dom to get out fast. That address was no longer safe. Then he went back to the mansion where he used to live with Shelley. Memories flooded his mind. Eric moved the wardrobe and found a wooden box where some items were hidden. Inside was Shelley's phone. Eric played the video Zodie sent. In the video, Shelley was playing the piano in Roy's mansion. Then, a man whispered to her. She suddenly stood up and stabbed her companion with a knife. Then Shelley just hid in Roy's embrace. What Eric didn't know was that Shelley was hypnotized when she committed the act. He couldn't accept the truth, not right away. He braved the rain, seeking out his tattoo artist friend to talk. The white-haired bodyguard from before, bringing 2 more pals today, quickly subdued Eric. Then he killed Eric's tattoo artist friend. Eric's eyes widened in horror as he struggled to break free. During the struggle with the bald bodyguard, he took a shotgun blast to the abdomen, but this time, Eric actually went down. Then he plummeted back into the ocean of death. After surfacing, he returned to the station again. The old man, watching all of Eric's suffering, knew that Eric's love for Shelley was no longer pure and steadfast. Since Eric had totally screwed up the chance the gods gave him, the old man wasn't about to waste any more breath. However, just then, Eric called out, his voice practically dripping with determination.
Mine for hers.
He was ready to trade his soul for Shelley's return, even if he had to go to some dark, godforsaken place. The old man gave him a heads up. Even if he did this, they could never be together. But Eric didn't even flinch. A whole flock of crows started circling them, and one even kamikazed right into Eric's body. The old man cut both their palms, and they clasped hands. From this moment on, he told Eric, there's no turning back. With this black blood, you will move between worlds. Just like them. This time Eric woke up from the bathtub with a whole new level of power. Only a few seconds had passed in reality. The assailants hadn't even left the house yet. Eric quickly took out the bald man, swinging the gun butt like a maniac. He snatched the bodyguard's phone and found out the white-haired dude had set up a meeting with Marion at the opera house in 2 hours. Grabbed his tattoo gun to fix his broken tattoo, slapped on some gothic makeup, changed clothes, and snagged the tattoo artist's knife. 2 hours later, he was off to the opera house. Inside, Marion and Roy were chilling, enjoying the opera. Meanwhile, Eric, accompanied by some powerful, beautiful tenor music, embarked on a bloody massacre. They did their best to put up a fight, but Eric had apparently activated a cheat for unlimited health. They obviously stood no chance. Marion quickly got the news that Eric had infiltrated the opera house. The stairs were soon littered with their bodies, pushing forward under a hail of gunfire. The powerful fire knocked him to the ground. The bodyguards thought he was finally dead. But, naturally, Eric suddenly raised his knife and swiftly stabbed them to death. Blood stained the tiles red. The performers' voices reached a climax. When the passionate music stopped, the audience erupted in applause. Eric had also cleared all the obstacles in his way. Roy looked deeply disappointed upon hearing the news.
He's here.
He ruthlessly abandoned his loyal Marion. Meanwhile, Roy's secretary tried to stop him, but he quickly realized it was impossible to kill Eric, so he simply pointed the gun at himself. Eric wasn't about to let him off that easy. He beheaded him. Then Eric walked up to Marion, covered in blood. He demanded to know where Roig was. After getting his answer, Eric walked onto the stage as the curtain was closing. He threw the two heads into the audience, causing instant chaos and wails. In a daze, he saw Shelley sitting in the audience. Eric picked up a bouquet of her favorite lilies from the ground. He drove to their familiar bridge. After placing the lilies down, he headed toward Hillcrest Manor. Eric searched the villa, eventually finding Roig's room. Eric immediately put the knife to Roig's throat. However, Roig, being the manipulative bastard he was, deliberately cut his own palm and said, "I am just an ordinary old man. I have blood and flesh. I can bleed and die, completely unlike you, and Shelley's soul has long since gone to hell. No matter what you try, you can't bring her back to this world."
Look at yourself. Why would you want to be with you? Only hate. You have no love left.
Roig used his words to distract him, then plunged the blade into Eric's heart, all while whispering, "You can't feel anything at all. How can there be love in your heart? Hate drives you to find me, not love." As Eric was distracted, Roig suddenly moved closer, whispering an incantation. However, thick black blood gushed from Eric's chest. The brief, unforgettable love with Shelley played on repeat in his mind. Eric seemed to snap awake from a dream. He grabbed Roig in an iron grip and violently launched him toward the window. Both plunged down to the transfer station.
Will you pay for what you did to her?
To all of them.
Under Roig's feet, some unknown, squirming object writhed, but he didn't even flinch. Then he shoved Roig's head into the icy water. At that moment, several dark hands reached out from behind, dragging Roig straight into the abyss. And at the bottom of the water, Shelley slowly surfaced. Eric frantically pulled his lover out of the water. Unfortunately, just as they reunited, they had to face separation once more. Because Eric had already sacrificed his soul, there was no chance for his rebirth. In the end, with the urgent aid of medical personnel, Shelley awakened. But beside her, Eric had turned into a cold corpse. However, they firmly believed that one day their souls would find each other again. At that time, Eric would regain his love. So, love the chaos, hated my guts. Either way, you're obviously engaged. Go ahead, subscribe, because if you think this was messed up, you haven't seen anything yet. And you definitely won't want to miss the next accidental immortal.